Mike here with Electrek, and today I'm riding around Amsterdam because I'm here at Micromobility Europe. Come along with me while we check out all the coolest things we can find at the show.
Micromobility Europe is a yearly industry-focused trade show and networking event, and the sister show to Micromobility America. For 2 days, this was the place to be. Even the parking lot was a veritable smorgasbord of interesting rides. Of course, there's no denying that 2024 has been a tougher year for the industry, and that was reflected in the somewhat smaller size of the show this year, though there were still plenty of heavy-hitting companies and startups alike, showing off innovative micromobility solutions, plus a wide range of speakers on various topics, ranging from policymaking to trend tracking and more. There was also a startup competition that saw new entries to the micromobility space competing for the top prize. Let's take a look at some of the companies presenting at the show, in no particular order other than how the videos landed on my hard drive. First up is Voltaire, a slick-looking French e-bike company that you definitely cannot fault on appearance. If you're going to be limited to European regulations for e-bike performance, then you might as well go all in on style. Voltaire operates in much of Western Europe and has multiple e-bike models, all sporting this very classy-looking design. Not to be outdone, right next door was Veleretti, a Dutch e-bike company whose headquarters was actually right down the street, so while many of us flew into the show or came by train, they rolled up by bike. Veleretti's e-bikes are a slightly more modern take on the classic Dutch bike. What do you think? Classic or modern? Let us know in the comments below. Oh, and speaking of classic European meets modern day design, check this out. It's Belgian e-bike company Cowboy's newest model, the Cowboy Cross. It's got a front inverted suspension fork, a suspension seat post, and a bit wider tires, making it more of a go-anywhere bike. It's not really an off-roader, but it certainly handles cobblestones, train tracks, and other urban obstacles much better. I stole one for a bit and escaped the show to do a bit of riding on the bike, and my exploring took me to a beautiful little neighborhood which seemed like the exact kind of riding this bike is meant for. It's not cheap at a current sale price of €3,499, but boy does it ride smooth and feel surprisingly powerful off the line, with the combination of torque and cadence sensors giving it instantaneous response. Eventually I had to stop playing around though and head back to the show, where my next stop took me to the Okai booth, who was there demonstrating their largely sharing-focused lineup of e-bikes and e-scooters. Many of the shared electric scooters and bikes from companies like Lime and other major sharing providers are actually supplied by Okai, so you've probably used some Okai vehicles before and not even known it. And speaking of scooter sharing, I bet you've never seen scooter sharing quite like this before. George Costanza, eat your heart out. In fact, there were a lot of sharing-focused companies, which perhaps we should take as a signal in the industry. For example, Mobi was showing off their new parking system to convert existing city bike parking into shared e-bike stalls, with a tap-and-ride system that doesn't even require an app. On the other end of the spectrum, Luna computer vision technology was on display, demonstrating how Luna helps sharing companies add cameras to make their vehicles safer and more accountable, tracking things like sidewalk riding and more. So far, they've worked exclusively with commercial customers like sharing companies, but they actually just launched a Kickstarter campaign to gauge interest in their first ever consumer product, which is a camera system to warn riders of upcoming cars and dangerously close passing. And it also compiles all of that data to determine which roads are notorious for dangerous drivers. If you opt into sharing that data with other cyclists, you can actually help your fellow riders in your area by everyone seeing how safe various roads and routes are. Now this one is a bit different. Laka offers insurance for riders, and e-bike riders make up a big portion of their customers, probably due to how expensive our bikes are. But they don't only offer theft insurance, but also damage. Might be worth checking out, and not just for how cool their stickers are. There were also some wild cards at the show, like this new prototype scooter from a company called Superfast Scooter. This thing looks a bit like an engineering school project in its prototype form, but its inventor is an MIT grad, so it tracks. The scooter is designed to give it as close to a motorcycle feel as possible, yet it's easy to travel with since it uses power tool batteries, which you're allowed to fly with, and it fits in a typical golf bag. Hopefully we'll see this one get off the ground. Yamaha was right next door, showing off some pretty impressive looking e-bikes with a quite novel frame design that came out of a partnership with Fantic. There were some other cool sights outside too, like this new British folding e-bike Flit, which is kind of like what Brompton should have built if they were planning an e-bike from scratch instead of just converting their famous folder to electric. It's just about as small as a Brompton when folded, but doesn't look like it's wearing an e-bike conversion kit in the same way. And speaking of Bromptons, this is actually not a real Brompton e-bike, but rather a Brompton e-bike that's running eBike OS, a suite of clever control software from eBike Labs. It has a number of cool features that I couldn't try out, like hill hold, which doesn't do much good in a flat city like Amsterdam, but I did enjoy the backwards pedaling variable regenerative braking, which was pretty cool. I also got to see Bo's new scooter, which isn't only really slick looking, but they're also fairly innovative in their physical design under the hood, so to speak. They're one of the only standing electric scooters that do not fold, which might seem like a strange sacrifice in portability, but what you get is a much more rigid and solid feeling scooter since it doesn't have the weak point of a folding mechanism. They've also got their first ever factory steering stabilizer in a scooter, which they touted during the Startup Awards section.
We've got smaller wheels, and that can mean they're unstable. So we created a whole system that when you hit a bump or a dip, it stabilizes the scooter and helps you to feel comfortable, confident, safe.
In fact, at risk of spoiling the whole thing, Bo ended up taking the top prize.
And the winner is... Bo.
Navi was also on site, showcasing a wide range of electric scooters and e-bikes, as well as this thing, which is technically produced by their parent company, but it was also fun to see at the show. And slightly creepy to see at times.
I'll get nightmares from that.
Back to a bit more familiar stomping grounds, New had an electric scooter at the show, decked out in a custom colorway. Like they always say, if this scooter's Moroccan, don't come a-knockin'. I've actually got a new scooter back home, and so it was great to see a familiar face, or headlight. Back to unfamiliarity though, since I think this is something that probably none of us have ever seen before, a hydrogen-powered bicycle. This company, Hydroride Europe, has designed and built bicycles that don't have batteries, but rather hydrogen fuel cells. There's still a typical e-bike motor, but these bottles of hydrogen take the place of a battery. Is this the future? I'm not sure I'll be putting one of these hydrogen generators in my living room anytime soon, but they're focused more on sharing companies than individual consumers anyway, which seems like the better application.
This is officially the first time I've ridden an electric bike powered by hydrogen. There is no battery on this bike at all, it's just a hydrogen fuel cell.
And speaking of new technology, back on the software side, 80 Night was there, one of EIT Urban Mobility's many startups under its wing. This startup has technology that helps cities monitor and understand their current micromobility traffic through a network of cameras and sensors, and they're currently setting up a pilot program in Peachtree City, Georgia. Ultimately, that data can help advise cities planning for micromobility growth, but 80 Night can also do other cool things, like help cars' driver assistance systems better spot pedestrians, and also integrate with city traffic lights to help stretch that yellow light a few seconds longer if it looks like a cyclist or scooter rider isn't quite going to make it through the intersection. It's all about making cities safer for everyone, not just car drivers. There are a lot of scooters, bikes, skateboards, and good old-fashioned walking pedestrians out there, and you can see how many different types of vehicles there were at the show. So focusing on building systems in cities for all road users is only going to be more and more important as numbers grow and cities continue to develop for the future. This was just a taste of what Micromobility Europe had on site, and it will be interesting to compare it to the upcoming Micromobility America show in Southern California this coming November.
Thanks for watching, everyone. We hope you enjoyed that look inside of Micromobility Europe. If you did, why don't you give this video a thumbs up? And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of our future electric vehicle videos. See you here next time.